At this moment, before Jade blesses us with her message, I would like to invite all of us for a word of prayer. Dear kind and most gracious Heavenly Father, we'd like to thank you for everyone here that you have gathered here. And Lord, tonight we're going to address a question. Is it really good for us to be coming to church? Is there a purpose for us here other than just to see each other? What is relevant about church? And we know, Lord, that you will provide the answer tonight. Please be with Jade. Send her a double portion of your Holy Spirit, that she may speak your words and that we may be blessed and change in response to that. In Jesus' name we pray.
Good evening, church.
Good evening.
So before I start with my message, there's a little reminder. If there's any questions about my message, the previous message, or the rest of this week regarding hypocrisy in the church and this week of introspection, you can contact Pastor David Kokyong by the phone number that's on the screen currently, or you can write questions on the pens with pens and papers that are at the end of your pews. All right. I do want to start out with a word of prayer. If you will, bow your heads with me. Dear Lord, thank you for tonight and for this week and for everybody who's able to come. I pray that you bless everyone here and bless those who weren't able to make it but wanted to, and bless those who we wish could come. Please let the words that I speak be yours, and if I can impact one person tonight, that's all I ask of you, Lord. In your name we pray, amen. So I wanted to start out with a recap from last night for those who were not able to make it. Last night we talked about the story of Ananias and Saul, which is found in Acts 9. There it is. In this story that was shared, Ananias trusted in Jesus' word and God's plan for Saul, despite his past, despite the persecution of the church, despite anything that he's done and how they know him. And instead of inviting him to church, Ananias listened to what God said to him, and he just went to him and allowed Saul into his life. He restored Saul's sight, and he ultimately converted him. One mistake that we make in church is asking people why they're not coming to church, instead of asking them first to be part of our lives. So we should first be asking them to be part of our lives so that they can allow us into their lives, and then they can allow Christ into their lives. So my topic tonight is what is relevant about church. Alternatively, why I still go to church. I want to start out with a verse found in 1 Timothy 4, verse 12. And it reads, "Let no one despise your youth, but be an example to the believers in word, in conduct, in love, in spirit, in faith, and in purity." And I'm starting with this verse because of what it means to me. I only learned of it recently through Pastor David, and it was a note of encouragement and empowerment. It really creates a motto to stand by as a leader of the church. And it tells us, we have to be an example to those we would like to come to church in what we say and how we act outside of church as well as in church, and in keeping true to our own faith. It reminds me of what it means to be a true Christian, which is not only in church but in your public and your personal life. So what I've learned is that I became a leader because I had a mentor. Being a leader means being a mentor. It's the same thing. And I had many mentors growing up in this church, whether it be my family, my friends, elders in church, aunties and uncles. It all starts with someone first bringing you to church when you're young. And I want to especially thank my auntie Joanne, who actually would bring me to church every weekend when my mom wasn't able to, because she was working, or she had something, or she works evenings, so she would be too tired to come to church, but she wanted me to go to church every week. So I would sleep over at my Auntie Joanne's house or my grandparents' house, and they would take me to church. And it really just starts with that. Not only that, they knew me outside of church, they knew my personal life, and they truly cared about my life outside of church. And with that, family and the church were my greatest support growing up, which is one reason why I stayed. There's a quote by Phil Collins that I read recently that I really liked. It says, "In learning you will teach, and in teaching you will learn." So what this means to me is that you listen to those who want to teach. And not everyone carries the same interests or are really interested in church or learns the same way. So if you're wanting to mentor somebody, or you would like somebody to be a mentor to somebody else, there has to be that understanding in creating a relationship with those people. A true relationship that's not just asking why they're not in church, and it's not just the relationship of having them come to church. This is how we create leaders who are confident and care about what they do, by having someone who truly believes in you, coaches you, teaches you, encourages you, and not only that, but they follow up with you outside of where they know you best, which might be in church. So how do we become a mentor? One thing our church is really great at, I've learned, is creating programs. And the way that we create mentoring programs with an impact is through these steps: designing a program, attracting participants, connecting mentors and mentees, guiding mentoring, and measuring success. I'm actually going to be using Pathfinders as an example tonight. In Pathfinders, participants who are usually from grade 7 through high school and on, they're attracted to Pathfinders because they see the activities that are done in the program, and they see that their friends are involved. They see that it's fun, and they want to be part of it too. That's one thing that Pathfinders is really good at. That's why I joined, because I saw my best friend, Jade Bautista, in Pathfinders, and I wanted to be a part of that every week so I could not only hang out with her, but I could learn about God, which is something that impacted me later on. And another thing about Pathfinders, people tend to have greater feelings about something when it's being a part of something that's greater than themselves. Pathfinders is something that's across the nation, and it's not only that, but even as a young adult, I found I can't do things on my own. I have to have somebody there to support me. Recently, I've become something that's been a big part of my life recently is having a group of other young adults who are there to support me, pray for me, and just check up on me. Anyway, coming back to Pathfinders, there are Pathfinders and there are counselors, and we can really consider the counselors to be the mentors to the Pathfinders. I had so many mentors in Pathfinders. A couple of them are Uncle Cesar Gabriel, Uncle Jeremy Laggett, Uncle Abner, Uncle Iman, Tidon, Charmaine, Uncle Derwin, Umali. So many more people who I can't list all of them. But they guide mentoring by following a specific curriculum in Pathfinders, and they find things that are not only interesting to the mentee, but also that are relatable to the things that they're doing in their lives and will allow them to connect with each other. Some things that I remember doing in Pathfinders were knot tying, baking, and backpacking, which was my all-time favorite thing to do. I overheard earlier that during the short Pathfinder meeting that they were talking about a backpacking trip coming up, I believe, which I thought was really cool. Not only did they do all these activities, but they continuously would check up on their students outside of church or even just in church by saying hello, greeting them, asking them how their week has been, and showing genuine interest in what they're doing right now. That's not just Pathfinders. I remember being asked about things that I was doing in school. I get asked now what I'm doing in work and how that's going for me. And them showing that they really care really made an impact. Another thing that Pathfinders does is they coach on how to improve things where it's necessary, and they also award for successes. So coaching during Pathfinders might look like showing how to tie a knot correctly, or how to build a fire, or how to fold origami so it looks perfect. And they get patches for these things, and they get trophies for drill and recognition that makes them feel important. And that was something that was really important to me, knowing that I did something and they thought that was cool, or they thought that it was worth lifting up. This is how you really build trust, I think, in people, is by creating these relationships that have all these layers, not just, where are you going right now? Are you at church, or are you doing something else? But asking about school, asking about your personal life, asking about, how your family is doing, and understanding all these things about a person. It really makes them feel important, and it really makes them feel like somebody cares for them and is listening. When we create goals in Pathfinders, in young adult leadership and youth leadership, and guide people towards their successes, they will follow your example, and they will want to carry it on to their future mentors. Another thing I want to talk about that wasn't mentioned in this, in the steps to mentorship, is creating spaces. Creating spaces where people are not only comfortable to be in the presence of someone, but also to make mistakes and to learn. Growing up, I always had a place to go after church, or even during the week if I had nothing to do, which I thought was really cool. I went to my friend's house, or even just out with a youth group, doing something with people who I knew and I felt safe with, and who really allowed me to feel safe asking questions and just being myself without judgment. This is something that I think a lot of young adults and youth feel, but do not, they don't really talk about it, is feeling outcasted and feeling alone and feeling judged. Sometimes this, the church is a place where you don't want to be because you feel all these things, and nobody wants to be in a place like that. And I have to admit, I've been there myself. A lot of people have been there. People feel these things because they hear rumors, or because of the G word that Pastor Glenn always talks about, gossip. Or they feel it because they feel that some things in the church are exclusive. They're groups that they just don't fit into. We don't fit the mold that the church creates and that they expect of us to fit in. Because of all these things, people feel generally unwelcomed. They're sitting alone in church, they're not being greeted, or, in my case, I sometimes have come to church and felt alone because my friends are no longer here, but I have to find another reason to come here, and it should be God. So we have to have this come as you are mindset, which means we should open our hearts, our minds, our church to people who are not like us, because none of us are perfect people. The church is meant for sinners, which is what we all are, and we are all here to come and be saved just the same. Something we talked about last week in a young adult small group, the care group, is the golden rule and following the golden rule. For those of you who don't know, it's actually found in the Bible in Matthew 7, verse 12. I'm reading from the New King James Version, and it says, "Therefore, whatever you want men to do to you, do also to them, for this is the law and prophets." In this verse, the Bible explicitly tells us to treat others how we would want to be treated. So that means if you smile at someone, they will probably smile back to you. If you're kind to somebody, they'll probably be kind back to you. And if you want someone to come to church, you should probably first let them see God by your words and your actions. And being consistent is key. I do want to reiterate that creating spaces for people is not about expecting others to reciprocate your actions. It takes time and it takes creating that relationship. It's more about letting them know that they are welcome wherever you are. Can you imagine if everyone made an effort to show genuine interest in people who felt left out or felt like they had nowhere to go? They could be standing here speaking. The last thing I want to talk about is handing them the keys. This is something that I wasn't sure meant or what it looks like. So what does it really mean to hand someone the keys? If we are talking about something literal, like when I was in driver's ed and they handed me the keys, they were trusting me to drive a car. When in my workplace, when they gave me keys to the building, I was trusted with access to the building and bigger projects and more responsibility. But what does that look like in church, and why should we do it? And when are they ready? In church, when you're handed the keys, you are trusted to lead, and that doesn't mean just lead out in church. It means you're trusted to lead out in your own spiritual life. You're trusted to make decisions about your own spiritual life and to mentor others. And we have to remember that mentorship doesn't end when the keys are handed over. So how do you know when you're ready to take the keys? A couple examples I've thought about. As a youth director, Stacy is the youth director, I'm not sure where she is, and she might not think that she was ready to be handed the keys when she got them, but the great thing about that is the mentorship doesn't end there. She still has all the support from everybody who, was behind her, and all the support from all of her advisors and all the youth leaders and just the church. Same thing goes for RJ, who is the Pathfinder director. He still had the mentorship of Uncle Abner and all the other counselors who are there, who will continue to be there, and who will always give him direction and guide him. And any elder in the church, anybody who is starting a new position or being handed the keys, they're ready when they have all these responsibilities and they trust themselves to carry through with them, and to also know that they still have people behind them if they're struggling. So with all these things, what is our next step? So we as a church do a really great job of developing and nurturing and supporting leaders who are already visible in the church, as we've seen with Stacy and RJ, myself included, and many other of the youth who are here today. But something we can do better about is supporting the leaders, about lifting up the hidden leaders. So we can do these things through leadership training, through mentorship, and through opening our eyes to these potential leaders that are hidden in the church, who have all these talents and all these ideas and just all this potential to be great. We just have to hand them the keys and show them how to work, how to lead. So we also have to do this by opening our homes and our ears and our hearts to others especially. We can do this by creating what we call safe spaces, places where people do not feel judged and can speak to elders and to other leaders and advisors freely, and know that they're there to answer their questions and to support them. Some other ways we can do this is with like mixer events or going to small groups and getting every generation involved, because you can't do this with just one generation. You have to trust each generation to make their impact on each other and lift each other up. Another thing is to get to know those who don't know you. If nobody got to know me in church, I would not be here today. I would not be speaking here, and I would not be trying to push others to, or encourage others rather, to lead out and mentor and find somebody who, might not feel comfortable in church and making them comfortable. It all starts with the single impact of one person. And then making time for others. So many people have made time for me in church, and it's something I really appreciate. It's something that really made me the person who I am today, because they took the time to talk to me. They told me that they're praying for me, and they genuinely meant it. They taught me how to do Bible studies and gave me Bible studies. They invited me out to things outside of church and really took the time to get to know me, ask me about work. They visited me at work, and it made me want to see them the next week and then learn more about why they are inviting me out, which was because they had God in them. When I saw God in other people, then it made me want others to see God in me. So the note I want to end on is another Bible verse, which is found in Acts 2, verse 27. And it reads, "So continue daily with one accord in the temple, and breaking bread from house to house. They ate their food with gladness and simplicity of heart, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to the church daily to those who were being saved." I think this verse is the perfect picture of what our church should look like. A place where people feel welcome, they feel happy, they're breaking bread together, and they're just talking to each other and enjoying each other's company in the company of God. To answer the question that is the title of my sermon, what is relevant about church? We have to keep the church relevant, and to do this, we need to continue to create leaders and show them why God is relevant in our own lives so that He can become relevant in their lives. Thank you.
It's actually Q&A with both of us. Thank you, Jade. All right.
Thank you, Jade. That was a very practical message tonight, huh? Thank you. Do we have questions?
Is there any? I don't have any texted questions tonight. If there are any questions in the rows, can you pass it to the side and pass it forward? And if there are